by head coach Kelvin Sampson, senior Corey Davis Jr., sophomore Fabian White Jr. Again, our format will be the same as it's been. We'll take an opening statement from Coach Sampson, and then we'll open up to questions for our coach and the student athletes. With that, Coach, congratulations on advancing to the final. Can we get your thoughts on the game, please?
I thought our defense was outstanding for most of the game. You know, our biggest challenge was keeping Martin off the free throw line. He's a veteran, has a lot of moxie. He's very clever and knows how to get fouled, knows how to draw fouls. And then, as we saw tonight, when you get to the free throw line, it's important to make them. You know, he scored 23 points, but he was 5 for 24. But the 12 for 14 was problematic for us. But you know, most of our wounds were self-inflicted. You know, we had some kids that just didn't play with a lot of confidence for whatever reason. You know, it's not. This isn't rocket science. And then sometimes that unguarded 15-foot shot can be daunting, and that's kind of what we made it tonight. But credit Penny's kids. Penny inherited a situation that I don't think is easy. He inherited a really good team. You know, he's very fortunate to inherit the 5 guys that started tonight. You know, usually when you have a coaching change, you don't inherit a very good team, but he did. What I thought that Penny did a great job was integrate those young kids with those guys. That's not always easy to take 5 seniors and 5 young kids and make them a team. And that's and I thought Penny was really. I thought he was outstanding. We hadn't seen Memphis since first week in January, I think, and it was obvious that he had done a really good job with this team. But proud of my team. I'm not going to sit here and over-evaluate tournaments, conference tournaments. Not when every time I go back to my room and everybody's losing and being sent home, and we won. So. I thought it was great defense on that last possession. Didn't think about fouling. I've had moments where I have thought about fouling, but not there. I just want to make sure we didn't foul them. So helps to make free throws, though.
We'll take questions for Coach and the players. Raise your hand. We'll get a microphone over to you. We'll start right here in the middle.
Kelvin, was this one of your toughest games of the season, if not the toughest game, especially that second half?
Define toughest game. Yeah, well, usually when you get to a conference tournament, you don't play a road game. You know, that's unique. You know, when if you look at the SEC, and SEC is in Nashville, ACC is in Charlotte, the Pac-12 I think is in Las Vegas. Who am I missing? Big East at Madison Square Garden. Who else am I missing? Big Ten. I don't know where they are. Where are they? Chicago, maybe? Indianapolis? So, I mean, that had a factor. You know, the good thing about when you get to the NCAA tournament, they're on neutral courts. But that crowd was a factor tonight. I thought they buoyed Memphis. We got up 13. I think we're up 13 with about 5 or 6 minutes to go, maybe. And then that's when we started missing the free throws. And, you know, like I said, you know, if we're up 11, we miss 2 and they make 2, now it's 9. You know, we started playing that game way too much. You make your free throws, you're probably going to win by 10 to 12. But like we've done for most of the year, you know, we had some games where we had no business winning. You know, it's not like we're some juggernaut. You know, we never said we were. You know, we could have easily lost to St. Louis. Could easily have LSU. We're down 15 to LSU and came back and won. Had those games been on neutral court, we probably would have lost them. But we were at home, and when you're at home, sometimes your fans are a huge advantage. And we beat LSU because we played them at home. Had we played on neutral court, same with St. Louis. So But that's why you have 9 road games and 9 home games in conference play. Next year when we go to Fort Worth, you know, it'll be a true conference tournament because it'll be a true neutral site. Like this game coming up, Wichita State's playing Cincinnati in Memphis. That's a neutral site. But I told Penny after the game that I admire the job he's done. He really has. That's not easy to inherit. He inherited a good team. I'm not saying he didn't inherit a good team, but to integrate those new guys with these veterans, and he did it seamlessly. So a lot of respect for him for doing that.
Over here on the left.
Coach Sampson. Hello. Coach Sampson, near the end of the game, you were running that 5-guard lineup before inserting Fabian back in. How did you think that 5-guard lineup performed while they were on the court together?
Well, if they made their free throws, they'd have been outstanding. You know, it's kind of like, are you a golf fan? When guys shoot 60 and 61, what do they usually shoot the next day? 72, 69, 60, 73, and you say, well, why couldn't you? They're human beings. You know, Nate Hinton yesterday looked like, I don't know, you know, lottery pick. Today he was in the witness protection program. I couldn't find him. Where was he? You know, but these are lessons. Basketball is a hard game. It wasn't as easy as we made it look yesterday. We're not nearly as good as we played yesterday. And Connecticut's not nearly as bad. But when one team's playing downhill and the other team's playing uphill, you're going to have a score discrepancy like we had. We're not nearly as good. The problem is sometimes these kids think they are, and then the good Lord will say, you know what, son? I'm going to humble you. Do not disrespect this game. It'll get you. And but when you shoot 14 for 27 from the free throw line, you usually lose those games. We found a way to win them because our defense was good tonight.
Stay over here on the left.
Corey, 2 questions. One, did it kind of feel like in the second half that the other Memphis players kind of got caught just waiting for Jeremiah to do something? And then secondly, they're not going to be on the NCAA bubble even after this loss, which means he's never going to get to the NCAA tournament. Any sympathy for another guy that's got great game? It's not going to get to experience that.
To answer your first question, I mean, Jeremiah had going, honestly, from the start of the game, so I guess they were nitpicking when he got the ball and just let him do what he does best because he's an amazing basketball player. He can play off the dribble, shoot the ball, just draw fouls, and he was doing that very well tonight. I mean, I'm actually good friends with Jeremiah, so I mean, to know that he won't be able to make it to the NCAA tournament is kind of sad, but not to, my discrepancy, because I didn't want to not go to the championship. So, I mean, it's a win-win situation.
Over here to Terry.
Coach Sampson, Memphis never got over 25% shooting for the game. What do you do defensively to keep them off track?
Well, let's be honest. I mean, this was their 3rd game in 3 days, so I'm sure that that played a factor. They had some shots that I'm sure they normally make. That's why, the conference tournament is a little bit of an outlier. I don't know that we always crown our best team. Sometimes it's, Memphis is a good team. They've been a good team for about a month and a half, maybe 2 months now. You could see them getting better and better and better. But if you're not one of the top 4 teams, it's difficult to win 4 games in 4 days. It's tough to play that 3rd day. I've been in that boat. When your kids play as hard as they play, it's just hard for them to be good. So I'm not going to take credit for that shooting percentage. I think fatigue on their part probably had a lot to do with it too. Not to take anything away from our kids, but they're a lot better than that.
Stay over here on the right.
Fabian, can you just speak to how difficult, when Memphis was coming back down the stretch there, how difficult it was to play in that kind of environment, especially at the line, when everything's kind of going the Tigers' way?
Well, at the line, when the first one feels good and you miss it, the second one kind of gets to you. But the crowd, the energy that they had, and the way Thornton was going to the offensive boards really helped out with them coming back, because without those second chance points, I don't know if they would have been in the same position as they were today.
Go in front to Sean.
Hey, Corey. I'm from Al Staley at Temple, so I hope you don't mind the question, but I wonder if you could compare, you got called for a charge in the last minute here, compare that to the charge you got called in the last second at the Temple game.
Honestly, I don't really have an explanation for one of those. I mean, that's just kind of a discipline thing on my part. I mean, both times I've been told many times in practice to just go vertical instead of trying to go forward, and they just seem to catch me in those positions a lot. So, I mean, that's just discipline on my part, and I got to do a lot better at that.
We won one and lost one. That was the difference.
Go over here to the left.
This is for Corey and Fabian. For you guys, whether you're active on the court or sitting there on the bench, do you think it's more exciting as a team, or do you guys get more excited about like a great offensive play or a great defensive play, and why is that?
Honestly, I don't think we weigh them any differently. I mean, a good play is a good play at the end of the day, and we want to make sure that we're all being successful. We like to see each other be successful, so our energy never changes when it's on offense or defense. Like, it's just one of those things that we just level out and we just treat the same.
Time for
Yeah,
one or two more.
same thing that Corey said, but we get extra hype on when we get a stop because that's what we pride ourselves on, defense. So when we get a good stop and we're able to go down the other end and get a good offensive play, we pride it on defense. So we get excited on that.
We have time for one or two more. In front over here.
Coach, does Corey get enough credit for his efficiency? If you look at the number of shots some other star guards need to have that kind of impact, and what he's able to do with his efficiency.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch Corey's improvement since his first day he stepped on campus. His personality is a lot like his game. He doesn't have any highs or lows. There's some kids that are so emotional that they're like on the 85th floor, and then when things go wrong, they're in the basement. Corey's pretty much the same kid, and I think that carries over to his game. He's never has a bad practice, never has a bad game. Some days are better than others because he's a human being, but he doesn't force things. We tried to get him the ball and keep the ball in his hands because he's an 88% free throw shooter. But they're doing a good job of denying him. But those other guys have to step up and make their free throws too. But Corey's just solid. He's an outstanding player. I thought he was the best player in this league this year at both ends because he's an excellent two-way player. He plays both ends the same.
Last one for Dick.
You got to use the mic, Hoops, for God's sake. You're 90 years old.
Thanks, pal. When you've won as many games as you guys have, how hard is it to maintain levels of consistency every night?
Well, that's a great question. I think you focus on who you are. I don't. I was just sitting here looking at our record, 31-2. That's surreal. I had the Final Four team we had, I think, was 31-4, 31-5, something like that. But this team has been so good just about every night at one end of the floor. We're a good offensive team, but we're not a juggernaut. We don't have a lot of great shooters. I think we focus so much on the process, and how we get good. And we never. For instance, we have a ritual after game. I always go in and put our record on the board, overall record, our conference record. Then I put who we play next. And of those three things, I think the one I focus on are, kids are going to get their cue from their coach. I mean, it's just the way it's always been. We just always move to the next game. Like we're going to play the winner of Cincinnati and Wichita State. So nobody mentioned our record or any of that. We've got to go back and get ready for the next game. And then tomorrow was also Selection Sunday. We were in the same position last year. We played in the championship game, and Orlando. I went up to a suite in that arena and found out where we were going, and we'll do the same thing tomorrow. So we're very much a process team. We focus on, we've been doing this from day one. Our first big win this year was at BYU on the road. And ever since then, it's just next game, next game, next game. And that's why it's always amazing to me, the finality of a season. Because you're always focused on the next practice, the next game, the next meeting, the next this, the next that. And all of a sudden, it's over. You know, but I've got a great group of young men. I'm very honored and lucky to be able to coach them every day. And this has been a fun ride, and we'll ride it as long as we can.
Houston, thank you. Congratulations.
All right, thank you.